Welcome to the Hometown Legends podcast series. I'm your host, Mary, along with my co host, Mella Williams. Today's special guest was selected in the 1987 NBA draft, first round 12th overall pick by the Washington Bullets, Mr. Tyrone Muggsy Bogues. Thank you for joining us today on the Hometown Legend podcast series, and it is an honor to have you here joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
Mr. Bogues, we start the podcast off by asking the icebreaker question. And that question is, if you had a pregame ritual, even if it was in high school, college, or the pros, what was it?
Unfortunately, I didn't have a pregame ritual. I just pretty much I had a routine. In terms of going out early, getting my shots up, and that sort of thing. It wasn't anything particular or anything spiritual that I kind of did on a daily basis to get myself, acclimated to the game. It was just a routine in terms of going out, just getting my shots up, working on certain things. I didn't have no headphones on, no music playing. I didn't have no sage going on in the locker room. So, no, I didn't have any rituals.
Well, most people have rituals, so that's surprising. I know going to get your shots up is a very important part of getting prepared for the game. But I want to more so focus on you growing up in Baltimore, Maryland. You played at the famed Dunbar High School. Who and what made you want to get affiliated with the game of ball?
Well, growing up in the city of Baltimore, that's what we all did, play sports. I mean, it was all activity events that went on a daily basis, not like today's world where you playing video games. That was our PS4, our PlayStation outside, right? Playing football, playing baseball, playing basketball. Basketball was a hobby that I was interested in. Unfortunately, it came with a criteria, as they said, in terms of height requirement. But I was interested. I wanted to pursue it, even though I was getting criticized for doing so because of my height. But I believed in myself. I believed in what I was pursuing, and I wanted it badly. So I didn't let anyone discourage me or distract me from, accomplishing my goals.
And you spoke about basketball. You wanted to play at the height requirements and restrictions and things of that nature. But I found out that you also loved wrestling and was a baseball player yourself as well. Would you speak about the love for baseball and being a wrestler, please, sir?
Well, I like the game of basketball. I won't say I loved it. I like the game of basketball. I thought I was, pretty good at it. So that's why I continue to play. But wrestling was a passion. That was another uh, sport that I picked up that I really was passionate about, along with basketball. And mainly because it didn't have no criteria in terms of height requirement. It was all based on if you was quick, fast, and strong. And I was all of those. And that was something that I felt very comfortable doing and pursuing. But then again, it kind of ran into the same season as basketball when I got in high school. So I had to make a decision whether to play basketball or wrestle. I think I made the right decision.
Now, playing for Bob Wade, who later became the coach at the University of Maryland, what is something that he taught you that has stuck with you throughout your whole career of playing ball?
Well, coach was more than just a coach to us. He was more like a father figure, a mentor. I mean, he was in the area where a lot of adolescent kids that just, was anxious to have a dream and to try to reach their potential. And with all that talent that we had on that team, myself, the late Reggie Lewis, Reggie Williams, David Wingate, four of us was fortunate to make it all the way to the NBA. But we had 11 guys as well on that team that all got Division One scholarship. So coach was he was the driving force. I mean, he was our man. He was our example. He was a former professional football player who came back to the community. He was married. He had a wonderful family. He was educated, and he represented us the way we looked upon in terms of what we wanted to, pursue as for ourselves. And by being able to guide us in that direction and check those egos at the door, and being able to still accomplish the things that we was able to accomplish, going 59-0 for two consecutive seasons, was very special.
Speaking of that, going 59-0, being ranked number one high school in America. Speak about what you guys learned about yourself as a brotherhood that was a lifelong lesson as well.
Well, we were just kids. We were just kids that basically just lived in the neighborhood. We wasn't being recruited like schools are doing today. I mean, the school was literally across the street from my house, as well as Reggie Williams and them. So it was a neighborhood school. We all felt like this was a school that we all wanted to attend because not only did we want to attend it, our family members before us attended that school. So that was a real popular school for us to attend, as well as the sport and basketball. But Mr. Wade, again, he was the key. He was the one that, had that leadership quality that we all needed. He was a man that was very empathetic. He knew exactly where we all came from, knew what made us tick. I mean, he made us all accountable. He
Hmm.
vision, but most importantly, we was grateful to be with one another because we knew we had something special, and that was some good. That was a special time.
Right. In regards to the recruiting process, I know you just spoke on that briefly, but coming out of high school, you were receiving a lot of offers from Virginia, Penn State, Seton Hall, a couple of different schools. You decided to go to Wake Forest and play 4 years. What made you decide to end up in Wake Forest? Good old North Carolina.
Yeah, to Carolina, which was a culture shock for me when I first got there.
Mm,
But I knew it was the best place. I mean, ACC at the time was the best conference, and you wanted to play against the best. I always felt like if I played against the best, to have success against the best, I must be included with the best. So having that understanding, that mindset, and being able to, for my mom and I'm just to turn on the television on every Saturday, every weekend, and where they couldn't afford to come to the games, that was special for me, knowing that my mom could continue to follow me throughout my collegiate career. And wait, in the academic aspect of it, if anything, if all didn't work out for me on the basketball court, my education was important that I, will have that to fall back on.
right. And speaking of the culture shock, you know, how was your transition coming from Baltimore, Maryland down to Wake Forest, a small town where it's really nothing?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I said. It was a culture shock. Being in a city where you just surrounded with all minorities. You
Right.
know, all African
Hmm.
Americans, and here all of a sudden now you're going to a place where you now been introduced to a whole new world, and
Hmm.
with the Caucasian folks, and how to interact and engage as well.
Right.
But my visit was a pleasant visit. I got to meet some people that I never met before and got to speak to them, and they made me feel comfortable at the time, and along with the decision in terms of the opportunity for me in terms of playing. So that became such a big part of why the reason I chose Wake Forest.
Mr. Bowles, you ended up getting your number retired. You was a first team all ACC player as well. For me, I believe you was a part of that culture that first established point guard basketball at Wake Forest. With Chris Paul coming behind you, Randolph Childress, and point guards uh, that came after you. How do you feel being known as one of the pioneers to establish point guard basketball and at Wake Forest?
Yeah, when it's it started before me. The Skip Brown and the Frank Johnsons of the world. Those guys were very successful playing in Wake Forest organization, their program. And even though I didn't know of those guys at the time, but once I studied and learned, about their journey, I mean, I felt like this could be a great place for myself. And it just so happened that Wake Forest, we kind of put out some really good guards out there, and hopefully that we can continue that trend and see more of them in the NBA.
Speaking about the NBA, Wake Forest, how did the culture shock going from Baltimore to Wake Forest to the pros to the NBA, being drafted by the Washington Bullets, going back home to DC, and then to Charlotte? How did the culture shock prepare you for your future in the NBA and just in life in general?
Well, I mean, that's an education within itself. That's something that you experience and how to navigate through certain things in life, and especially when you're faced with those type of situations. And growing up in the inner city of Baltimore prepared me for a lot of things. Unfortunately, when I was a young kid, I got shot at the age of 5 years old. So, that changed my entire mindset and allowed me to really focus on my awareness. But those are the things that, you kind of grow into in terms of understanding who you are. And whenever you come into any type of program and environment, you're looking for a culture, a good culture setting, because that's what allows everybody to, to perform at their highest level. So, for me, I think my journey allowed me to be able to understand the type of cultures that I was entering into.
And you spoke of being shot. I also read that you said you had saw someone get killed with a bat at a young age, and how you never forgot it, even as an adult. Like you said, the culture shock and everything growing up and what Baltimore prepared you for,
Mhm.
and post traumatic disorder, right? Would you speak about that and how just everything you had to deal with that and just learning everything on a flight? Like you said, you were shot, you saw someone get killed at a young age, and you had to process all of that with going to a new environment at Wake Forest and then a transition into the pros. Would you speak specifically how to deal with post traumatic stress disorder, things like that, and just learning how to just deal with it going as life comes at you?
Well, for me, it was more or less just learning that on the fly, because I didn't have any information on how to deal with certain situations that you're born into. I mean, it wasn't something that we was asked upon. It was something that we was born into. And it was for us, it was like normalcy. It was the way of life. You see someone get killed, I got shot. You life just goes on because you feel that is going on a day-to-day basis in your neighborhood, and you can become numb to it, or you become aware of those situations and how to grow and how to protect yourself when those type of situations arise. And that's what that I always say. It's an education within itself. Learning on the fly, being able to how to prepare yourself, how to navigate through all type of adversity. And for me, unfortunately and fortunately, I got it at an early age,
Mm.
and I was able to see it from what it was at that particular time, and know how to deal with it from whatever that situation, how to move forward.
And I know that that has prepared you in life and just made you and shaped you into the man that you are today, on and off the court. You led the ACC in steals and assists, and to know that people criticized you due to your height, you proved them that size doesn't matter and it's more so about heart. And that's what, we've seen. Look at the Kansas State player, the point guard. He did a phenomenal job throughout the whole March Madness. You had to prove people wrong, though. How did it feel to know that you led the ACC in steals and assists, and you had to go out there and prove yourself that you could do it? What was going through your mind, I guess, through your whole college career, and what propelled you to that level to make those accomplishments?
Well, it was just basketball for me. It was other things for other folks. It was just the game. I was playing the game just like any other player was playing the game. Of course, because of my size, it brought some inquisitive questions in terms of what a guy that size doing out there. And for me, it was about being impactful, knowing your position, knowing what you're capable of doing on the floor, knowing your responsibilities, and being impactful on both ends of the floor. And when you're able to do that, all the other noise just goes away. And so that's what my mindset was in terms of just going out there, knowing what my strengths and weaknesses were, knowing what I was capable of doing, and just going out there displaying it on a big national stage, which allowed me to break down the barriers in terms of can a small guard play and compete on any level, let alone
Right.
high school, college, or the NBA.
Like you said, you had to prove people wrong, right? You, the shortest man to play in the NBA. What advantage did that give you, though? Because you were known as a great defender, right? So, what advantage, did you use with your size that offensive players, didn't like?
Well, I mean, my size is that I'm closer to the ball. I mean, you down there, the ball is there.
Right.
So that's where ones need to understand where his strength lies and how he can impact the game in a way where he's able to be out there as looked at as a asset as opposed to a liability. And for me, I accepted who I was. I knew I was small, but the game still comes with responsibilities. And regardless how big or small you are, we got tall players who can steal the ball. So as a smaller player, I felt like I can have an understanding and opportunities when to be able to steal the basketball and just knowing when to go for it. And so my size, a lot of people they probably couldn't see you at times. So that where you're able to come around and steal the ball in that regards. But just whatever God has given you, and the height, lack of height for me. I understood the skill set that I had, so that was allowed me to be able to withstand all the things that I was enduring.
Wake Forest retired your jersey, and you were also inducted into the Wake Forest Sports Hall of Fame. What is some advice that you have for players that are transitioning from high school going into college? What is some knowledge that you would like to share with those that are trying to take their career to the next level?
Yeah, high school, college is a totally different animal, and you need to have the understanding of when you're making that transition, even if you're just a regular student or you're in the sports, because it's a different element. Because now your time is more managed by you, as opposed to being in high school and elementary school and middle school, because you already have a pre-schedule and you always knowing you're going from 9 or 8:30 to 2:30 or 3 o'clock. In college, you got your own schedule. You know,
Mhm.
a class, maybe one class a day, or two classes a day, and maybe no classes on Friday. So you got to know how to manage your time. You got to know how to continue to maintain your way of thinking in terms of how to keep moving forward. Because sometimes you might not be able to have a job when you get to college. I mean, those things could, can affect the things that how you operate. And but even though you may have Pell Grants or some assistance, but as a student, these are things that now you got to adjust on your own as opposed to having help from your parents. And
Right.
so I would say just understand, the importance of that transition. Try to learn as much as you can. Ask questions. Ask those who've been there before you to try to give you, a little heads up of what you're going to. But it will never be, and it will never be like your own experience once you're able to get there.
Okay, this is the Hometown Legends podcast series with Miss Mary and Mello Williams. Today's special guest is NBA legend Mr. Tyrone Muggsy Bogues. Mr. Bogues, before you was drafted into the NBA, you had a brief stop in the United States Basketball League, playing for the Rhode Island Gulls. Would you speak about that experience and how that experience helped prepare you for the NBA?
Well, for me, it was a great opportunity, because we had former NBA players playing in that league. And it was like 2 months before the draft. And I felt like, instead of just laying around, let me go in and keep myself in shape and make money at the same time. And I said, let me play for a month. And it was a wonderful experience. I got to play against the players like World B. Free, Sugar Ray Richardson. So guys in that who was former NBA players who had a lot of clout still. Even played against Nancy Lieberman. She was down there playing in the USBL. So it was a good opportunity for me. Give me a little experience before I went into the NBA.
And when you got to the NBA, you was drafted by the Washington Bullets. Would you speak about that experience as a rookie? And would you speak about if there was a vet that, reached out to you and brought you in and showed you how to be a pro while learning the NBA game at the same time?
Oh, absolutely. When I got drafted to Washington, it felt like I was going back home. It was right in my backyard. So I was excited and to be a Bullet. Of course, Moses Malone took me under his wing. May he rest in peace. Mo taught me everything about the NBA. I mean, what the do's and the don't, what to look out for, how to be a professional, how to conduct yourself on and off the court. I was like a sponge to them. I was soaking up all that information because people don't realize that information allow you to kind of understand how to continue to be a pro. And a lot of these guys, once they get it and they make it, they take a deep breath and they'll realize that it's someone that's coming right behind you trying to steal your job because it's a business. And people don't understand that. And a lot of folks don't understand that how a guy can have so much success in college that once he make it to the NBA, that he don't have that same success. And that's where I would tell him it's a business, it's a man's world, and you got to reinvent yourself, once you get on that level. But those was the means that what Moses taught me. He really allowed me to be a rookie, and I was truly, thankful for all the information that he provided to me.
Now you went back to Washington where you were comfortable, and then the following year ended right back up in good old North Carolina. How did it feel to come back to Charlotte? Well, come to Charlotte rather, because you were in Wake Forest. But how did it feel to come to Charlotte? And this is where your career took off. I mean, you flourished here. So speak about your career here and just your time playing for the Hornets.
Yeah, I mean, when I found out that I was about to uh, be part of the expansion draft, I was really pissed because I just finished. I just had my exit meeting with our coach, and they explained to me that they was going to try to bring in younger players to try to fit my up tempo style because we had a bunch of older players on their way out of the league, Moses, Bernard King, and those type of players. So I felt like they was about to bring in some, other players in terms of fit my skill set. But when I got back to my apartment, my dorm, I mean my condo, they got a phone call from my agent, and he said that I was going to be traded, that I was going to be part of the expansion draft, and that expansion team would be Charlotte. I was upset at first, but then I realized I was going back to North Carolina, which made me feel a lot happy, and I felt so comfortable coming back to
Mm-hmm.
Carolina. So that I was happy that this decision was made because, as you said, this is where I was able to flourish and make a name for myself in the league.
Before we get into your Charlotte stellar career, you had a good year, and you played with one of the tallest players in the history of the NBA. May he rest in peace, Manute Bol. And his son Bobo is playing currently for the Los Angeles Lakers. Would you speak about your playing time with Manute Bol, and it was just a complete opposite. You was the shortest man on the court. He was the tallest man on the court. Did you guys have a chemistry? And if so, what did you do with that chemistry to have the shortest and the tallest on the court at the same time to your advantage?
Yeah, it was great playing with Manu. As you said, we were the two opposite of the spectrum. One the tall, one the shortest. But it was great. I think the Bullets really got a little caught up in terms of using us as more of a novelty act. I think they wanted to try to put people in the seats, and they saw a tall player and a small player, and all of a sudden they feel like they can use that as some sort of marketing stamp aspiration. But for me and Manute, we was comfortable in our own skin. We knew what our skill set was. We wasn't concerned about those type of things that was going on around us. And he was he was a rim protector. I could gamble a lot out there on the perimeter, and knowing that I had somebody that's back there that can protect the basket if my man got by me. So, the chemistry that we had, it was remarkable. We just didn't have enough time to play with one another. And I think it could have been something special. Newt was, I miss him dearly. That was my guy. We was the two youngest players on the team. And back then, everybody didn't have private planes. We all flew commercial. So we had to go through the airport. And it was only 8 first class seats, and they went by seniorities. And of course, Manute and I was the youngest, so we got bumped
Oh, goodness.
back. So you can imagine Manute 7'6" with his knees in his chest sitting in the back of the seat of the plane.
Yeah, I would have had to fight that because I would not be sitting back there in the business. Look, coach, I need to be in first class with that size. He should have been the first one. Now, I know that they put you all on magazine covers. They had a whole marketing scheme, for you all. But you spoke about having to fly commercial instead of private. How was it like, the attention walking through the airport? I mean, I know people were probably going crazy about you also. Speak about that.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of like a circus act when me and Manute, especially Manute and I, and Moses, we walking through the airport because we always together, all three of us. And when they seeing us walking, of course, they immediately want to take a picture. And Manute favorite thing, don't shoot, no shoot picture of me. So he was particular about that. But then he said, okay, go ahead, shoot. You can shoot the picture. But yeah, I mean, it was a spectacle. You see this big 7'6" guy walking through the airport with this little 5'3" guy, thinking that it's his son, and another 7 foot on the other side of him. I mean, it wasn't like today. It was kind
Right.
of chaotic when we used to go through those airports because fans used to know that teams came through airports in that regards.
Okay.
Speaking about leadership, right? Like you said, you and Manute Bo were young, the youngest guys on the team. You have been a part of fame. You have learned how to deal with the media. You have learned how to, to be a pro, carry yourself like a pro. Even at Dunbar High School, again, you guys went 59-0. You were everywhere. Press was everywhere. At Wake Forest as well. You was able to play also with two other legendary players, Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning, with that Charlotte team. Speak about the leadership because when those guys arrived to Charlotte, you were already in the league almost 10 years. Would you speak about how you had dealt with success, fame, the media, and making that transition from high school to college to the pros, just like they did? Again, Alonzo went to Georgetown and Larry Johnson with the running rep. What speak about leadership that you was prepared for everything for those guys that you gave off to them how to be a pros pro, like you learned from Moses Malone.
Oh yeah, I was just doing my job, passing it forward. When LJ came here, we took them under his wing, and as well as Zoe, just try to give them the information that I received, how to continue to be a pro. And you didn't have to say much to them because they already had it in them. They was hungry for it. They was destined to be Hall of Famers, and they came here with that type of attitude and never relished from it. And knowing that type of, hunger and want to win, I mean, you just jump on board with that, And so I didn't have to really do much in terms of giving them all of that information. They understood it, but more importantly, they watched me and they looked at me in terms of how I was operating with me and my family and on and off the court, and they applauded that, and those was how we was able to become close with each other because we trusted each other. We all had each other back. It was no hidden agenda. We all wanted us to be successful, and the bond that we was able to create. I mean, it's very rare for a team in the NBA to have 12 members or 14 members to be close and to share their time with a on and off court. That's what we had here in Charlotte. We had family and we had all the guys over at my house eating dinner, like Dell and I mean, it was just a family atmosphere we had here in Charlotte, which made it special.
Now, I want to take a couple of steps back and just talk about you entering in the draft and the draft night, right? You hearing your name called. What type of emotions were running through your head at that time when you heard your name selected?
Oh man, it was a surreal moment. Sitting there. I mean, I knew Washington and New York was looking for a point guard, and Mark Jackson and I was the two that they was interested in. And I'm from Baltimore, he's from New York, and we thought that we was going to each other's home place. But then because I never visit Washington, I visit New York. I didn't visit Washington, and so I thought that that was going to be the case. But when I heard my name on that 12th pick, I mean, the weight of the world was shifted off my shoulders that night.
Mm.
I mean, it was a surreal moment. I went up there to get to shake Commissioner David Stern hand, just like all the other guys have done it to put their head on. That was a special moment for me and my family.
With that moment, being from Baltimore, how were you? How did you reflect being from Baltimore, growing up in Baltimore, and being able to walk across the stage and shake former Commissioner, may rest in peace, David Stern hand?
Well, that was for the entire city of Baltimore. when they saw that moment take place. I mean, that was it. I mean, they were supported throughout my entire career as a kid, and they was waiting for the moment just like I was. I mean, so to be able to have that accolade and to go back home and share it with, your loved ones in your city. I mean, me, Reggie, and the Reggie Lewis. I mean, that was a special time for all three of us getting drafted in the first round, making history from three guys from the same high school. So that was a rare moment, but an exciting moment once we got back to Baltimore.
You talked about that the Hornets was 12, 13, 14 deep family, guys that was close together. You guys bonded. And the play on the court resembled that. Again, you saw Dale, you play with Dale Curry, right? You guys had some great battles in the Eastern Conference. Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Speak about that togetherness that you guys had as a unit, as a family, that prepared y'all for the Bulls that was together as a family, and just the challenge of what you guys had to face as competitors.
Well, the Bulls back then, that was the team you need to go through. They were the ones that had the accolades and had the championship banners hanging in their arena. So that was the team you had to go through. Even when Michael retired, and you thought he was retired, but then he came back, and he happened to come back against us. But that was a great opportunity to face them during that series. We felt like we should have won that. Felt like we didn't get the whistles that we should have gotten because of MJ was on the court. But, we didn't prevail. They won. That year, I had surgery right afterwards. So we was just looking forward to come back the next year to try to do it all over again. But unfortunately, the ugly head of the NBA showed itself. Alonzo, wind up taking his talent to South Beach or Miami, as you want to say, and we never recovered from that.
After that, you ended up going to Golden State, and then you and Dale Curry ended up in Toronto together. Speak about that transition from, again, Dunbar to Wake Forest to playing in the USBL to going home to Washington, making a career in a Nets home, a second home in Charlotte. Now you guys were a part, and you was a part of another expansion team. Speak about that moment, going from, basically Charlotte to Toronto.
Well, when I left Charlotte, I went to Golden State, and then after the Golden State, I was a free agent, and Butch Carter reached out to me and asked me, would I be interested in coming to Toronto? And then, of course, I reached out to Dell because Dell was with Milwaukee, and he was about to sign with Milwaukee, and I kind of told him that we have an opportunity to go up to Toronto. Dell and I played 11 years out of my 14 years together. He and I played 11 years, 9 in Charlotte and 2 in Toronto. I mean, we felt like this. I thought that it would be a good fit for he and I to join the Raptors because they had young talent in Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady. They had Charles Oakley, D. Brown, as well as Doug Christie. So they had some veteran players on the team. And Butch Carter explained to us that he wanted to bring veterans and the young guys and kind of mentor them. So when we decided to go to Toronto, it was a great opportunity for us both to link up with each other again. As I said, we played 11 years together. To have that special time because it's very rare that two players get to play that many years with one another, and we was fortunate enough to do so.
Now, when your career ended, you decided to get involved with coaching in the WNBA, and you decided to come back to Charlotte again. I know you love it here, okay? But you decided to coach with the Charlotte Sting. How did you have to make an adjustment from playing in the NBA to now coaching women? What did that look like?
Well, it wasn't a major adjustment at all. I mean, basketball is basketball, and the
Mhm.
women professional game is they're remarkable. They are professionals who operate as such, and just to be the game is different. I mean, I think
Yeah.
they mostly on their fundamental aspect of the game, even
Mhm.
though tremendous athletic ability in the WNBA, but they so focused on the fundamentals of the game. That's what you love about it. You wish the men focus more on the fundamental aspect of the game, but that's the beauty of it. I mean, I enjoyed working with them. I mean, as I say, they were so professional. I mean, they come in I mean, you think about a woman's life and what they have to endure, what they go through. And we had mothers on our team. Helen Dollar had had triplets, and
Mm,
being able to come in and work, take on your profession, and then go home to for mommy duties.
mm-hmm.
I mean, that is remarkable within itself. And I think they need to advertise more of that and market that more. So I think it will bring more fans to the game.
Speaking of the women's game, the women's March Madness tournament just set a record of 9.9 million viewers. Viewers. Speak about the March Madness tournament for the women's March Madness tournament and how far women's basketball and sports in general has come, especially with you having a hands-on approach with it to grow the game as a coach.
Women's sport is growing, I should say, but it can be more. It needs to be more. It needs to invest more in women's sports, because that's the irony of inclusion. Being able to allow them to reach their full potential of what they feel that they have a skill set in. And now that soccer all of a sudden became equally and getting their fair share, it need to be across the board with all the sports. And that's when we're going to see that equal opportunity for us all. I love the women's game. I mean, women really pursue, the game just the way a man pursue the game. They're passionate about it. They want to win. They're talented, and they want the support, just like anyone who's participating in whichever sport they're in. They want that support. I mean, that support behind them. So I mean, I'm 110% behind the game, women's sport, and I hope that we all do a better job to keep promoting it.
And as you mentioned, you spoke about females being more so focused on the fundamentals of the game. The NBA, I feel like the physicality has slightly diminished, and the game has just transitioned into a game where you're pulling up shooting threes from almost the half court line. You have players coming from overseas that are stronger and bigger and more so changing the game in a sense, right? So how do you think, or what do you think that the NBA needs to do in order to I guess get back into the tempo of being more physical? Just speak about that, I guess.
Those are rule changes. Those are the rule changes that they want to have in terms of want more scoring.
Mhm.
More physical. The game is a little slower. We had guys that playing with their back towards the basket, as opposed to the 7 footers are facing the basket, and the emphasis is more on the 3 point line, and that's how coaches are coaching these days, and that's where the NBA is. It's a trend. So until the rules change, then the physicality is never going to come back into it, because you got to allow players to play, and whichever way they allow them to play, then they will be able to, to adjust to that. But the way the game is now, you can't touch, you can't impede anybody's progress and so forth. And I think, like I say, until the rules change, the game won't change, because they plan to the skill set of the players of the day.
Speaking of players of today, again, you having a hands-on approach of still growing the game of basketball. You're coaching high school boys as well. Speak about your approach to your teams, camps, clinics. Anytime that you get to teach, coach kids, boys and girls, the youth, what do you stress as a coach to your players, to your team, any youth that you interact with?
Well, first you got to play the game the right way. Playing the game the right way, and you can't, as a coach, you can't be bored teaching the fundamentals. You can't be bored taking one step backwards if you need so in order to get to 2 steps forward. Because if you don't, then you defeat the whole purpose. Trying to jump from a player who can't dribble with his left hand and all of a sudden you running plays to his left. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. So you want to make sure that, they all understand the importance of this game. It's a privilege. It's one, so we all got to understand that we have to bring in the right attitude for one. Without the proper attitude, information won't be able to go in and you won't be able to obtain it. So having the right attitude will allow you to continue to reach your full potential. And again, as me as a coach, that's something that I'm always going to preach to a kid or an adult. And it's nothing is given. It's nothing given here. It's all earned. And it's all about developing good work ethics, being honest with yourself. When you look in the mirror, don't like it, love it, love that reflection. And when you in tune with yourself, you have a lot more understanding in terms of being accepted to things that's coming your way.
Now, aside from basketball, you are heavily involved within the community. You've done charity events, golf tournaments. What is your main focus now that you aren't playing ball? And are you still involved in the NBA in any type of capacity?
Yes, I serve as an ambassador for the NBA as well as for the Hornets. So I'm still relevant in the game, doing pretty heavily in it, doing lots of events with them. Um, what was the second part of it?
I know you're doing like charity events and golf tournaments and stuff like that. So just speak about that. I was actually able to be a part of one of your golf tournaments maybe like 2 or 3 years ago now. So I was able to experience that and everything that you've done for the community. But yeah, just talk about like your involvement within the Charlotte area.
Yeah, well, that's my foundation, the Muggsy Family Foundation, where we serve underprivileged kids and families to live their best quality life. There's a food insecurity that's in our country, in our society, that needs to be addressed. And in Mecklenburg County, it's 16%. And that's mind-boggling to me that all those families are in need for food. That's the basic necessity to reaching your full potential as an individual.
Right.
So trying to address those areas. We provide scholarships for kids who have ambition to go to a trade school. CPCC is overseeing our scholarship program. So we're just trying to serve this community and have an equitable community for each and every one, where they can be able to, live their best life.
And you also wrote a book. It is, let's see, let me make sure I have this correct. My Life in Basketball, is that correct?
That's it. That's the second.
Okay. That's okay. Now talk about your books. I mean, you're saying that this is your second book. So what is your first book?
In the Land of Giants.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is, I guess, if you were to pull out one excerpt from this book, what would be something that you would want to share with those who haven't had a chance to read it? What would be something that you would want to tell us?
Well, the second one, the first one was more mainly about me. My pops passed away, and my good friend Reggie Lewis had passed away, and me entering to the NBA. This one is more about relationships
Hmm.
that I was able to impact on others, as well as them having impactful impact me as well. Speak about, I say one, my wife today, to where we was married early on in life, and then we was divorced for 10 years, and then after the 10 years of divorce, then we got back together and we remarried again. So that's kind of not a normal thing that people
Right.
divorce. They knew we
Uh-huh.
separated, but we found ourselves, and God brought us back together. And I'm quite sure, as you guys know, the family was all happy about that.
Hmm.
About the impacts that I had on some of my players, Lonzo Mourning, Del Curry, Stephen Curry, and Larry Johnson, and Charles Oakley, and so forth. They speak very highly. I mean,
Hmm.
my dues in terms of the things I was able to bring to them, and I speak very highly of them, of what they was able to bring to me in terms of how they allowed me and how I was able to become the individual that I am because of their input, their friendships, and the wars that we had with one another. So that's mainly, and they wanted to be positive. It was a pandemic time that we were sitting around, and I wanted to put something positive out there in the atmosphere where folks can believe that anything is possible if they believe in it. And don't let anyone discourage you, distract you from believing the things that you think that you want to see come to a fruition. Because if you do that, I mean, you really, really gonna be miserable because you're gonna be second guessing yourself so much, not being able to go through with the things that you've been thinking about.
Mr. Bogues, I must ask, you mentioned Stephen Curry. You was able to see Stephen Curry grow up some in the Charlotte area. Would you speak about what you saw in Steph Curry and just the Curry boys in general growing up Did you see what Steph Curry ended up becoming the greatest shooter in NBA history?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, I was just so in awe, just like everyone, witnessing what we witnessed, and no one had an idea that Steph would be the player that he is today. Watching him and Steph and Sadell, the sister, grew up as kids. I mean, they was just loving sports. I mean, Sadell volleyball, Steph and play baseball with my son, and it's something that they just love doing. And to see the transformation in terms of when he went from high school to college, and the college to the pros, is mind-boggling. I'm just so happy to witness it all. Dell and Sonya did an amazing job with them. Um, they all competitive. They was competitive as kids. They still competing as an adult. And I mean, what more can you say about the things that they're doing, not just on the court, but off the court as well? So I am 1,000% so proud of those guys.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple minutes left, and I want to talk about NIL pretty much to close out the show because you've been in a position to learn basketball, learn business from a high school standpoint, college, the pros, being around Larry Johnson, who had the Grandmama commercials. Uh, what do you like about NIL, and what advice do you give aspiring athletes in all sports about NIL?
Well, that's where we are today. I mean, they basically just took it from underneath of the table and put it on top of the table. It was going on quite a bit anyway, but it was mainly happening to just the top notch athletes that you know about. Now that the college, the NCAA, it's $1 billion business. They're really racking off of these athletes, the likenesses of these individuals. So why not reward them? They always say the scholarships is their reward. No, it's not enough. Because a lot of these kids can't work. They can't go out there and get a job because of their commitment to their sports. So in order for them to continue to believe and feel that they are being rewarded in their, terms of putting forth in the university, this NIL is perfect for them. Now they give them a means of financially security. I mean, because many of them, 99% of them, are not going to make it to the next level. So have, you know, some Lord of, some relief being able to, once you leave college, at least you have an opportunity to have some sort of stability going out there in the real world.
Do you believe that these NIL deals could potentially prevent people, or let's just say the players, from taking them games serious? I mean,
I don't know if I can't. Well, not so much taking the game serious because, again, if they're not producing, they're gonna be gone.
right.
Out there on your league, on your whatever deal you may have, uh, that's mainly just getting you to that university. And
Mm-hmm.
university, more or less, again, for that particular student, hopefully they understand the importance of being able to, sustain and save what you're going to get. Because again, like I said, 99% of them are not going to be on that next level.
Right.
So
Yeah, I just feel like it could possibly, and I don't want to say discourage them, but just make them comfortable where they are. Like, oh, I'm getting money here. I don't want to. I'm satisfied. I don't have to go to the next level because people they're getting paid so much now. So I feel like
we're
I
not
know.
that next level.
Would you? Well, that's true. That's very true.
But
But like you said,
I point though, they can get complacent, you know,
right.
receiving what they, but then, again, that's like I say, the ones who know that they
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to move on, they're gonna keep pursuing what they're doing. That's just a little helping hand along the way. But for those, like I say, 99% of them, that's basically a reward of what you're getting, and you maintain. You got to understand how to maintain it and treat it as such, because again, you may not be on that next level after it's all.
Right. Yeah. For those that don't get to make it to the next level, because it's only what, like 5,000 people that have ever made it to the NBA. For those that are trying to go overseas, Um, I guess what are some words of advice for people who are, wanting to go into the NBA but don't have that opportunity and are hesitant about, playing in a different landscape, which they probably have no idea where they're going?
That is true. Overseas is totally a different ball game. Everybody's not equipped to do that. Um,
Hmm.
a kid, and you just got to make a decision. Be honest with yourself. After your collegiate career, you got to see, okay, am I still in a position where I can go earn a living playing basketball, and how long I'm gonna do that? Because the window 30, after you get 30, you looked upon old in the game of basketball. Um, I know LeBron is kind of challenging that right now, but that's mostly what people are looking once you turn 30 because it's a young man's game. So you got to be honest with yourself. Do I want to continue to pursue this and earn a living as long as I'm capable of? But when do I cut the cord? When do I realize I need to go ahead and pursue, what I'm truly need to focus on in terms of my career beyond? Because the game and the sport is going to last until you get hurt, you're not good enough, uh,
Right.
that sort of thing. So hopefully that they can be honest with themselves, because you got kids today that's now coming out of college because of the transfer portal. It affects a lot of guys, and a lot of older guys are now still in college as opposed to 2019 and 18. You got 26 and 25 that's still in college that's competing against these 18, 19 year olds, which is affecting the kids that's coming out of high school today. Why they got to go to JUCO or Division II just to get a scholarship.
Do you encourage those that are I call them scholar athletes, but do you encourage them to complete all of the 4 years and get their degree?
Well, education is always important, but if you have an opportunity and to present in terms of to go take care of your family, you can always come back and revisit that education aspect of it. But when we came out, it was all set up to where a lot of us didn't come out early. We went all 4 years. Only the very few came out, and they didn't come out until their junior years. The Michael Jordans of the world, Alonzo. I mean, the larger ones, those type of Charles Barkley. So those, normally back then we all went 4 years, and that's why you're seeing the leaders being so young because the one and done, and now you don't see not too many veterans in the league. I mean, a veteran today probably about 26 in the league, 26 years old. So it can play a part.
Mr. Bowles, we appreciate you taking time out of your day, sir, to join us here on the Hometown Legends podcast. On behalf of Miss Mary and myself and everyone at USC Elite, we thank you for your many contributions, not to just the sport of basketball, but to the culture as well, sir.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you for this interview. I had a great time with you all talking. So now
Thank
I'm
you.
play me a little golf.
Oh,
Okay, okay.
well, go play
Appreciate it.
some golf.
Yeah, yeah.
We
And
enjoyed you. Tell your family I said hello, and thank you for everything that you've done within the community. And you've been a blessing to Charlotte. So I'll be seeing you around. I'm pretty sure.
absolutely. Thank you always. And tell Dad I said hello.
I will.
All right, y'all be good.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to today's episode of the Hometown Legends podcast with the featured guest, Mr. Tyrone Muggsy Bogues. We will be back next time at the same place. Continue blessings, everyone, and continue being the difference that you want to see in the world.